Ah, the NES Classic Edition. How we hardly knew ye. After being on the market for only 5 months, it's been announced by Nintendo that they are discontinuing production and that the last shipments of the NES Classic Edition are going out to stores this April, never to be seen again. I can't even be angry about this, since we've spoken about the NES Classic Edition on so many topics before and how it was disappointing how Nintendo was not supplying these to the market, because obviously consumers were dying to get this little product. Ever since it was announced last July, the internet went nuts. People I knew who hadn't played an NES in 25, 30 years were excited about this. People were talking about this item. People that weren't gamers were telling me about it, saying that people they worked with, their coworkers, we're talking the non-gaming general audience, potential consumer market, they were talking about this item. Not to, be a broken record, but I said that if they produced these, this would have been the hottest item this past holiday. The best Christmas item. Like, they would have flew off the shelves if they were produced. And I don't think many people would think that's a crazy notion, being that this is feeding on nostalgia. Retro's huge. 80s is absolutely huge right now. 80s and 90s, both of it. And Nintendo is still a household name, even if an item like the Wii U hasn't done that well in the past. It was a no-brainer. It was an absolute home run. You'd wonder why Nintendo didn't do the NES Classic Edition 5 years ago for the 25th anniversary of the NES, why they don't have Super Nintendo and N64 ones on the way. You thinking that, this is going to make Nintendo hundreds of millions of dollars easily in profit. Maybe it's a supply chain issue going on, but no, that's not what Nintendo said. So again, I can't even be angry about this. I'm just sort of saddened for Nintendo. I'm saddened for, obviously, all of us, the people that want to get one of these and that couldn't. The families, the fathers and mothers who wanted to share with their children in an easy way what they had as a child and shared the games that they loved in a legit way, without ROMs, without buying a RetroPie, an easy, simple solution, something with a cute box, a $60 price point, which is very reasonable as a stocking stuffer. And now they can't do it. I mean, this is a lose for everyone. It's a loss for Nintendo, not making their money. It's a loss for the consumers having, not getting an item that they want at a reasonable price, but also a loss in confidence of Nintendo not listening to them as we've screamed at them for the past 5 months to please make more of these. So this is Nintendo's official statement on the matter. Okay? Throughout April, Nintendo of America territories will receive the last shipments of Nintendo Entertainment System and NES Classic Edition systems for this year. We encourage anyone interested in obtaining this system to check with retail outlets regarding availability. We understand that it has been difficult for many consumers to find a system, and for that we apologize. We have paid close attention to consumer feedback, and we greatly appreciate the incredible level of consumer interest and support for this product. Oh, man. It's not sure if this is going to be for the global market, but it's probably for the global market. If it's going to be discontinued for the largest single market in the world, the US, why wouldn't it be discontinued everywhere? So they went on to say, though, and this is only revealed now, which we could have thought about or surmised this, but it's insanity to think that Nintendo would have done this. But this is what they said. They said that this was always going to be a product that was not going to be available for long. In quotes, the NES Classic Edition, a Nintendo reps told IGN, the NES Classic Edition wasn't intended to be an ongoing, long-term product. Let that sink in again. I'll say that one more time. Was not intended to be an ongoing, long-term product. However, due to high demand, we did add extra shipments to our original plans. So what they're saying is they wanted us to be a holiday item to keep Nintendo's name in the public eye to bridge the gap between the nothingness of most of 2016 and the big Nintendo Switch launch. They wanted something to be a stopgap. And they figured this was a way to do it. Okay, that's fair enough. If they honestly thought this was going to sell, 50,000 or 100,000 or only 500,000, hey, that's fair. If they got their market research totally wrong, I still think someone should be fired for that because the buzz was huge when it was announced. That being said, they could have obviously corrected it along the way. If this was a supply chain issue, if this was a production issue where maybe we just can't make these fast enough, you know what? Talk to someone in China, wherever these are being produced, because they're not being produced in-house. Talk to them, ramp up, and say, hey, what do you need to produce triple the amount of what you're doing now? We're going to do it. We're going to get it done. Obviously, that never happened. It was never their intention to have the NES Classic Edition be an ongoing item, according to them. Because, hell, they could keep that factory open, even if they can only produce, say, 20,000 a month or 50,000 a month. What they're saying is they still don't want to do that. Because due to the fact that they're still shipping them now, they still have produced these up to a short time ago. These are still, it's not like they stopped producing these 5 months ago. They were still producing these. They're still sending out extra shipments in waves, as we reported. I think I reported a couple weeks ago. Best Buy said we have more in stock a week or two back, coming in the same time as their Switch shipments. So this is an awful decision, obviously, but it's a sad one as well from Nintendo of Japan. Reggie Fils-Aimé said in Japan that, we hear you, we're going to have more NES Classic Editions. And they did. They didn't lie about that, but it just wasn't the quantity to meet the large spread demand to prevent the scalping of these items. What can you do, right? But why did this happen? Why did Nintendo only sell less than 2 million of these worldwide, an extremely low number, when they could have marketed this around Christmas? They could have marketed this on TV. I saw no marketing at all for this, neither did you. They could have ran a fucking Super Bowl commercial. They did a Switch one. Good for them. By the way, the marketing of the Switch has been A+ to this point, I think. One of the reasons it's sold out up to this point. But they could have even did minor publicity of the NES Classic Edition and sold over Christmas 5 million of these easily. You could have had a lifetime to this point. They could have sold probably, 8 to 10 million of these when all was said and done, if they produced enough and marketed a little bit. The Atari Flashback is still sold, right? Even though it's on iteration, 5 or 6 or something. Like, they still make those, and those have been out for like a decade, right? Those sell millions over that decade, right? This could sell millions in 6 months. This could sell 20 million over the course of a few years. It could probably sell even more than that. Think about the amount of people that know the NES Classic, that know the classic NES from 30 years ago, that grew up with it, tens of millions of people, and then retro gamers and other people have kept it alive. Virtual Console comes out. When the Wii comes out in 2006, more people discovered the games. We're talking a huge loss of revenue here. I'm going to guess that over the course of, if they produce this over 2 to 3 years, say this had 3 years of decent marketing, not even heavy marketing, running a couple commercials a week, running one on Monday night, a couple of Monday Night Raw, every 6 months or one before Christmas. Okay? Say they sell, I'm even going to be generous and say they sell 18 million of these over a few years. 18 million, pat math. 18 million times $60. That's, let's see, that's over $1 billion. That's almost $1.1 billion in revenue. $1.1 billion. Now, did they sell these at a loss? No. Did they sell these at no profit? Highly doubtful, being that the material cost of this is really cheap to put these together, especially if you're going to do these in high quantities. But so if you want to be generous and say that on each of these, even at a wholesale price, which the vast majority were sold wholesale, they only made $15, $20 on these. You want to say that? I'll say low and say $15, and that's probably low. It's probably really closer to $20 each that they make on one of these, to be generous. 15 times, what did I say, 18 million? 18 million. We're talking at least $250 million profit. $270 million to be exact. And that's being conservative. That Nintendo has lost out on, potentially, over, say, the next 3 years. Again, if you think you can get the 15, 20 million, which I think is a distinct possibility based upon how many Atari flashbacks have been sold, and the Atari flashbacks are not as popular or as not as buzzworthy as this, not as mainstream as the NES is nowadays. Do you think the stockholders are happy about this decision? If I was a stockholder and I had a decent amount of Nintendo stock, I'd be fucking furious. I'm really interested in seeing what happens to the stock tomorrow based upon this news. I don't see it going up. I don't. Pissing money away. Pissing it away. Going back to the margin, I saw some arguments saying that, well, maybe it was due to the third-party licensing. And again, there's about 10 games that are third-party on the NES Classic Edition. My response to that is, really? You think that Capcom and Konami and Tecmo thought they could hold Nintendo over a barrel so they couldn't put the games on the NES Classic Edition? You already saw that Nintendo went to Super C instead of Contra because they probably balked at, Contra, be like, no, we're not paying that much. We're just going to go for Super C instead. If I was these third-party companies, especially like Capcom, I'd be dying at the chance. I'd be almost giving away my IPs for free to be put on the NES Classic Edition. So don't tell me that's a reason why. That's a silly reason. Nintendo can always renegotiate. They could always find any other third-party. There's tons of third-party publishers with decent games that they can reach out to fill those gaps if they had to produce, say, a 1.1 version or 1.5 with different games. That's not an issue at all. Or worst case scenario, if you want to say that, hell, Nintendo could have said, fuck it. We can come out with one that has 30 first-party games, no third-party, pay no licensing to anyone, and it still would have sold like hotcakes. Maybe not to the same extent, but, if they put out, I don't know, Zelda 1, they have all 3 Super Mario Brothers games on there, Zelda 1, Zelda 2, they could have found just fucking black box games and put them on there. They could have put ice hockey on there, which I'm surprised wasn't on there to begin with, for example. And it would have been fine. It would have been fine, but that's not the issue. I don't think that's it at all. Was it the hacking? Do you think that Nintendo really gave a shit about people hacking the NES Classic Edition, being that the Wii was hacked and they still sold it? The 3DS was hacked. The DS was hacked with flash cards being available. Now, of course, you can say, well, Pat, with the Wii, there was firmware updates that you've connected to the internet. It could break your system, or, they could tell if you're doing it. Okay. You don't need to do that with the 3DS or DS. You can never do an update again and still do that and still have a hacked console. And Nintendo put out different iterations of their hardware after discovering they were hacked in order to combat that. Combat. You don't think they could have done that with this, with a newer shipment of these? They couldn't have patched out with the software before they shipped out new ones? That's not the issue either. You think that's worth them giving up $250 million potential profit? I don't. So what is it? I really think what you come down to is Nintendo not understanding, and this is what I tweeted out, and this is what got picked up on the fucking, I was surprised, there was a Twitter moment of people being upset over this being discontinued. It was a Twitter moment, and they picked one of my tweets, and what it said was, Nintendo, I don't think gets that this is a different market entirely than the Switch. People will buy this that will never want to buy a Switch or a modern console. Those casual people, the ones I mentioned before. The people that I know that when they come to me and say, yeah, all my hospital coworkers are talking about this thing. And that actually happened. The random guy, again, at the sushi place, I'm eating dinner with Frank, and he comes up to me and tells me, hey, you heard they're bringing back a Nintendo? I'm like, holy shit, this guy knows about it. This guy's not on Twitter. He knows about it, you know? Different markets. You don't even have to stock this next to, like, what is Nintendo afraid that people are going to look at this being stocked right next to the Switch? Fucking tell Target, tell Walmart, throw your weight around. Put it in the toy section. Put it, you know what I mean? You don't have to put it next to the Atari fucking Flashback. You know, just put it away. Put it in the fucking novelty section. People will find it. They'll do a Google search. They'll know what aisle it's in. They'll ask a worker. They'll find the fucking console. They'll order it online still. They'll find it. That's not a concern. A real concern that you should be worried about. Jesus Christ. That'd be like saying, well, I'm concerned that the 3DS has virtual console titles, so I don't want to sell that next to its Switch. And they're still doing that now. So that's really what it is. I think they're afraid of cannibalizing future virtual console sales, whether it's on the 3DS, if you still are buying them on the Wii U, or 6 months away from now, they're not even available yet when they come out on the Switch. Again, that's silly though, because people that are buying this either aren't planning on buying the Switch or aren't planning on buying the Switch to get the 30 games available on here on the virtual console. You really think, Nintendo, that it's worth it? That if you're what was it, $5 for an NES virtual console game? You're really worried about cannibalizing those sales versus moving these at millions a year? Like, is that really what your game is? You are throwing out guaranteed profits for a potential larger profit that's never going to materialize. And I think that's what this is really about. They don't want to devalue their IPs over the long run. They're okay doing it for only 5 months as a stopgap. But now they don't think Super Mario Bros. 3 is only worth $2 as it is on this console. They think it's really worth that $5 on the Switch when they will try to sell it to you for the 5th time, the same game, just on a different console. It's just sad. This is not Nintendo of America's decision. I can almost guarantee you it comes from Nintendo of Japan and their backwards way of thinking. It's backwards. The only people that win here, again, it's not the consumers. It's not the people that want to see retro games get in the spotlight and be highlighted and be respected. It's not Nintendo. They lose too. Scalpers win. The scalpers win again. They didn't win with the Switch now. Maybe a teeny bit, but the Switch is now getting pumped up. So Nintendo, obviously, they couldn't take a chance there. They couldn't come out later and say the Switch was never intended to be a long-term product. But the scalpers won with the NES Classic Edition. Congratulations, scalpers. Sometimes you lose with Nintendo. You lost with the Wii U. You really didn't make it with the Switch. But you won with this bad boy. That person that has the tower of 50, which I don't know how they get 50 of them. They must know a supplier or robbed a truck. But that person wins out. You know what's also who also loses again? Nintendo, and our confidence in them going forward. And the worst part about this is that since they dropped the ball on this so badly, the confidence in the consumer base is going to be shaken if they try to do one of these again. So when they announce the Super Nintendo one, eventually, if they do, you think they would? Maybe 2021, 30-year anniversary. People are going to remember this and be fucking annoyed for going out to Best Buy, trucking out at 6 in the morning, going to all the different Walmarts and Targets in order to be only see 10 show up in a store or 5 at a fucking GameStop, and then going home sad that they don't have a Christmas present or something for their nephew, or they can't share playing Super Mario Bros. 2 with their niece. Whatever the scenario, it's all bad. But the scalper, you won this round, scalper. You won this one. You're still filthy and dirty, but you won this one. But it's not too late. If there's a silver lining to this, and I'm really trying hard to see one. I really am. Nintendo could always go back out to wherever this is being made in China. the Chinese factory, they can always produce more. If they have to get a new licensing agreement, third-party agreement, and pay a little bit more, they can always do that. Hell, you want to fucking raise the price of them to $75 or $80, they'll still sell at that price because they're still selling for over $100 on eBay. So you can always, even if you're not making a profit margin, say you want to make $40 per unit, raise the fucking price to $80. I have no problem with it. I just can't see how this cannot be produced still in some capacity. Maybe it was a problem getting the controllers made. Maybe they had a hard time keeping up. Find fucking someone that can make them in a decent quantity then. You did it in the 80s and 90s. Do it again. Just find someone. You're Nintendo, for God's sake. You have billions of dollars. You can find someone to make, your NES Classic controllers. You can do that. Because, jeez, if you talk about being hard to find find that extra controller. God, I'm lucky I found that extra controller in the box. Holy shit. I don't know what that's going to be worth in the future if they ever make more of those. I'll be scalping that when I'm 85 when I need more denture cream money. In closing, please make noise about this. Call Nintendo up directly and voice your opinion. Send them emails. And of course, they're going to have the stock answer that this was never intended to be a long-term product. We've heard you loud and clear. Future products we're going to produce more of. But hey, stranger things have happened. Nintendo can admit their mistake. Nintendo Japan can get the factory going again. The old cartoons, the factory, the whistle. Starts up again. We can get more of these rolling out there. Maybe not the exact same 30-game lineup. Maybe it'll be 40 games. Maybe Nintendo will drop a couple, swap some out. But there's no reason why more of these cannot be produced in the future. More of the NES Classic Edition. And Nintendo, if you make the right decision, there's no reason why you could ease our pain, make consumers happy, restore our faith in you of listening to us, and at the same time, make yourselves a shitload of money. Just do the right thing, please.